The distress signal was weak. It came from a planet that no map showed as important. Captain Park stood on the bridge of his cargo ship, the Endurance, and stared at the blinking red light on his screen. His crew of 12 waited for his decision. "It could be a trap," said Lieutenant, his second in command. She was a careful woman who had saved his life twice in the past 5 years. Pirates use fake signals all the time. Nodded, she was right. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity was still new to it. 300 years among the stars was nothing compared to species that had traveled between worlds for millions of years. Humans were small. Humans were weak. Every captain knew this. But also knew something else. He knew that his grandfather had taught him a simple rule. When someone calls for help, you answer. "Change course," he said. "We're going." The planet was called 442b in human records. It was a cold world, far from its dying star. The Endurance landed on a flat plain covered in gray dust. The air was thin but breathable, and walked out with 4 armed crew members, their boots leaving deep prints in the soft ground. They found the source of the signal in a cave system beneath a mountain. The caves were old, carved by water that had dried up long ago. Inside, they found the survivors. There were 47 of them. They looked like insects standing upright, with 4 arms and large eyes that reflected the light from human flashlights. Their bodies were thin, almost skeletal. They were dying. The oldest among them stepped forward. His name was, and he spoke through a translation device that hung around his neck. His voice was soft and tired. "Humans," he said. "We did not expect humans." Lowered his weapon. These creatures were not a threat. They could barely stand. "I am Captain Park of Earth. We received your distress signal. What happened here?" Made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cry. What happened? The same thing that always happens to the weak. The Dominion came. They took our world. They took our children. They took everything. We are what remains of the people. Had heard of the Dominion. Everyone had. They were a confederation of 12 ancient species who controlled nearly a third of the galaxy. They did not conquer through war alone. They conquered through fear, through economics, through slow strangulation. Species that resisted were destroyed. Species that surrendered were used until nothing was left. "Why did they target you?" asked. His large eyes turned to her. "Because we were weak. Because we had resources they wanted. Because we existed." He paused. "There does not need to be a reason. The strong take. The weak disappear. This is the way of the galaxy." Felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. "How long have you been hiding here?" 12 of your years. We found this abandoned colony and made it our grave. We did not call for rescue. We called only to leave a record, a message, so that someone would know we existed before we are gone." The old turned away as if the conversation had exhausted him, but then he stopped. He turned back and his eyes found face. "There is something else," said. "Something I want one human to know before I die. A secret my people have kept for 70 of your years." Waited. 70 years ago, before your kind had left your home star, one of our research vessels was passing through your system. We were studying your sun. We found something, an asteroid, very large. It was going to hit your 3rd planet, your Earth. Felt his heart stop. 70 years ago, the Great Warning. Every human child learned about it in school. In 2777, Earth scientists had detected an asteroid that would have killed every living thing on the planet. They had 20 years to prepare. It was barely enough time. Humanity survived, but only because they had that warning. "That warning," said slowly. "It came from an anonymous deep space transmission. No one ever found out who sent it." Nodded. "Our government had rules. We were not supposed to contact primitive species. We were not supposed to interfere, but my sister was the captain of that vessel. She could not watch a whole world die. She sent the message in secret. She never told anyone. When she died, she told me. I am the last who knows." The cave was silent. could hear his own heartbeat. "You saved us," he said. "Your people saved all of humanity." One ship, one message, one small thing. His voice was fatting. "We did not expect anything in return. We did not want anything. We only wanted you to live." Took a step forward, then another. He knelt in front of the old so their eyes were level. Around him his crew stood frozen, not knowing what to say. Elder said, "My people have a custom. When someone saves your life, you owe them a debt. That debt passes to your children and their children until it is repaid. This is not just a tradition. This is who we are." He reached out and took one of his thin hands in both of his own. "You saved 8 billion lives. You asked for nothing, you expected nothing, and for 70 years we did not know." His voice was thick with emotion. "But now we know, and I swear to you on my life and the lives of everyone on my ship that debt will be repaid." Stared at him. "We are 47, we are dying. What can you do?" Stood up, he turned to. "Send a message to Earth. Priority 1. Tell them we found the ones who saved us. Tell them there are 47 left, and tell them that humanity remembers." His eyes were wet, but her hands were steady as she activated her communicator. Looked back at. "What can we do?" he repeated the question. "Everything, we can do everything, because humans never forget a favor, and now the galaxy is going to learn what that means." Outside the cave, the stars turned slowly in the dark sky. The Endurance sat waiting on the gray plain, and across the void of space, a message traveled toward Earth, carrying news that would change history. The debt was remembered, and payment was about to begin. The Galactic Assembly Station floated at the center of the galaxy, where the stars were so close together that night never truly came. It was the largest structure ever built by living hands. 100 species had worked on it for 10,000 years. Inside its great halls, the fate of civilizations was decided with words instead of weapons. Ambassador Lee had been humanity's voice in this place for 15 years. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had learned to play the games of galactic politics. She had learned when to speak and when to stay silent. She had learned that the strong ruled and the weak suffered, and that complaining about this fact was useless. But today was different. Today, she had received a message from Captain Park, and today she was going to break every rule she had learned. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was a circle of rising seats, like a stadium turned inward. Representatives from 300 species sat in those seats, watching as walked to the center platform. Above her, floating screens showed her face to those too far away to see. "Honored representatives," she began. Her voice was calm and clear. "I come before you today to speak of the—" A murmur ran through the chamber. They were a forgotten people. Their world had been absorbed by the Dominion decades ago. Why was the human ambassador wasting the Council's time with ancient history? "They are not extinct," continued. 47 survivors have been found on an abandoned colony world. They are the last of their kind. I am here to request protection for these survivors and sanctions against the Dominion for their crimes." The murmur became louder. In the section where the Dominion representatives sat, there was movement. A tall figure stood up. Her name was Counselor, and she represented the leading species of the Dominion Confederation. She was old beyond human understanding, her scaled skin the color of dried blood. She had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a beach. "The human ambassador speaks of crimes," said. Her voice was like stones grinding together. "What crimes? They were a dying species when we arrived. We offered them a place in our confederation. They refused. Their extinction is their own choice." Did not look away from those ancient eyes. The records show that the Dominion strip-mined their planet, that their children were taken for labor camps, that those who resisted were executed. Is this what you call offering a place? The records show what happened to a weak species that could not protect itself, made a gesture that might have been a shrug. This is the natural order. The strong consume the weak. The galaxy has worked this way for 1 billion years. Humanity is young. You will learn. Felt the eyes of 300 species on her. She knew what they were thinking. They were thinking that the human was foolish, that she was fighting a battle she could not win, that she should sit down and accept reality like everyone else. She smiled. The Council may not know this, she said, but 70 years ago, when humanity was still trapped on a single planet, they saved us. They detected an asteroid that would have destroyed Earth. They warned us in secret against their own laws, asking nothing in return. Because of them, 8 billion humans survived. The chamber went quiet. This was not in any official record. This was new information. We did not know, continued. For 70 years we did not know who had saved us, but now we know, and we are here to repay that debt. Counselor laughed. It was an ugly sound. Repay? How? There are 47 refugees hiding in a cave. They have no military, no economy, no value. What exactly do you plan to do, Ambassador? Write them a thank you note. Laughter rippled through the Dominion section. A few other representatives joined in. The strong laughing at the weak, the old laughing at the young. The same pattern that had repeated for 1 billion years. Waited for the laughter to stop. You misunderstand us, she said quietly. We are not here to ask for your help. We are not here to beg for your mercy. We are here to inform you of what is going to happen. They will be protected. Their survivors will be given a new home, and the Dominion will answer for what it has done. Leaned forward. Is that a threat, little human? It is a promise. The Council voted 2 hours later. The motion to protect, though, was defeated. The motion for sanctions against the Dominion was defeated. Everything had asked for was rejected. The galaxy had spoken, and the galaxy did not care about 47 refugees or the debts of grateful humans. Left the chamber without another word. Far from the Galactic Assembly Station, in the dark space between stars, Admiral Menu stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable. He was a large man with a face and hands that had killed in 3 different wars. He had commanded humanity's 7th Fleet for 20 years. He had never lost a battle. His communications officer turned to him. Admiral, priority message from Earth, code black. Menu felt his heart beat faster. Code black was the highest classification. It meant orders that could not be questioned, could not be discussed, could not be refused. He read the message in silence. Then he read it again. Sir, his officer asked. Menu looked up. Through the viewport he could see his fleet stretching into the darkness. 50 warships, the pride of Earth's military, but they were nothing compared to what was coming. Signal all ships, he said. Operation Remembrance is authorized. Wake up the reserves, all of them. Sir, the reserves have been sleeping for 100 years. If we activate them now, the other species will see. They will ask questions. Menu smiled. It was not a kind smile. Let them see, let them ask. By the time they understand what is happening, it will be too late. Across human space, in hidden shipyards and secret facilities, machines that had been dormant for a century began to move. Factories that had never stopped building, even in peacetime, opened their doors. Weapons that no alien species knew existed were loaded onto ships that no alien species had ever seen. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they first reached the stars. They had smiled and traded and played the games of galactic politics, but they had never forgotten that they were small. They had never forgotten that they were weak, and they had never stopped getting ready for the day when they would need to be strong. That day had come. Ambassador Lee returned to her quarters on the station. She poured herself a drink and looked out the window at the billion stars of the galactic core. Her assistant knocked on the door. Ambassador, the Dominion representatives are requesting a meeting. They want to discuss your comments in the council. Took a sip of her drink. Tell them I am unavailable. Tell them I will speak with them again when they are safe. And tell them, she paused, savoring the words, Tell them that humanity always pays its debts. Outside, the galaxy turned in its ancient patterns, unaware that everything was about to change. Commander was born in space. She had never felt grass under her feet or rain on her face. Her mother had been a pilot. Her grandmother had been a pilot. Flying was in her blood like oxygen. She commanded the stealth fleet now. 12 ships that did not appear on any sensor. 12 ships that could pass through enemy territory like ghosts. No one in the galaxy knew they existed. No one in the galaxy knew what humans were truly capable of. Until today. Her fleet hung in the darkness above a Dominion slave world. The planet below was called Threshold in the Dominion language. 50 million beings lived there, taken from a dozen different species. They worked in mines and factories, building wealth for their masters. The average on Threshold was 7 years. "All ships report ready," said her tactical officer. Nodded. She had reviewed the mission 100 times. She knew every guard post, every patrol route, every weakness in the planet's defenses. Human intelligence networks had spent decades gathering this information, one piece at a time, patient as spiders building webs. "Begin operation," she said. The Dominion security station above Threshold was the first to die. It happened so fast that no alarm was ever sent. One moment the station was there. The next moment it was dust. Human weapons did not use lasers or missiles. They used focused gravity, crushing targets into nothing before anyone could react. On the planet's surface, Dominion garrisons found themselves surrounded by enemies that had not existed a second before. Human soldiers in powered armor fell from the sky like meteors. Their weapons made no sound. Their enemies simply fell, one after another, before they could even understand what was happening. Private First Class was 19 years old. This was his first real mission. In training, everything had seemed simple. In training, the targets were just shapes. But here on Threshold, the targets were alive. They screamed. They ran. They died. He had killed 4 Dominion soldiers in the first minute. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. A voice in his head kept asking, "What am I doing? What am I becoming?" Then he saw the children. They were in a holding pen near the main factory. 100 of them, maybe more, from different species. Some were barely bigger than human bobbies. They were huddled together in the dirt, thin and dirty and terrified. A Dominion guard was raising his weapon toward the pen. He was going to kill them. He was going to murder 100 children rather than let them be freed. His rifle moved before he could think. The guard fell. One of the children, a small creature with blue skin and large eyes, crawled to the edge of the pen. It reached through the bars toward. Its hand was tiny. Its fingers were trembling. Knelt down, he took that small hand in his own. "You're safe now," he said. The translator in his helmet converted his words. "We're here to help. We're humans." The child did not understand. How could it? It had been born in slavery. It had never known anything else. But it held onto his hand like he was the only solid thing in a breaking world. Understood then why he was here. Not to kill, not to conquer. He was here to open cages. He was here to tell the forgotten that someone remembered them. Across Dominion space, the same scene repeated 1,000 times. Human fleets appeared from nowhere, struck with overwhelming force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. But they did not destroy. They liberated. Dr. Shin watched it all from the research vessel Prometheus. He was the chief scientist of humanity's weapons program. For 60 years, he had studied every piece of alien technology he could find. He had taken it apart. He had understood it. He had made it better. "The Dominion is panicking," said his assistant, showing him the intercepted communications. "They don't understand how we're doing this. Their weapons can't touch our ships. Their sensors can't find us. They're calling us ghosts, demons." Smiled. It had taken so long. So many years of pretending to be weak. So many years of letting other species look down on humanity, but the waiting was over. "They made a mistake," he said. "All of them. They thought that because we were young, we were stupid. They shared their technology with us, sold us their old weapons, let us study their ships. They never imagined that we would learn faster than they did. They never imagined that we would combine innovations from 100 different species into something new." He looked at the tactical display. Human ships were everywhere now, spreading across Dominion territory like fire. "The Dominion has been conquering for 10 million years," continued. "They perfected their weapons 1 million years ago and stopped improving. Why change what works? Why innovate when you always win?" He shook his head. "But humans never stop. We never accept that something cannot be better. That is our gift. That is our curse. And now it is our weapon." On Threshold, the liberation was complete. 50 million slaves were free for the first time in their lives. They stood in the streets, looking at the sky, not understanding what had happened. Commander landed her shuttle in the main square. She stepped out, removed her helmet, and faced the crowd. Behind her, human soldiers were handing out food, medicine, communication devices. "People of Threshold," she said, her voice carried by speakers across the city. "My name is I am a human. You do not know my species. We are young. We are small, but we remember our debts." She paused. The crowd was silent, thousands of eyes fixed on her. 70 years ago, when my people were helpless, another species saved us. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing. But we remember. And now we are here to pass that gift forward." She raised her hand. "You are free. Your children are free. And if you want to fight for the freedom of others, we will give you weapons. We will give you ships. We will stand beside you, because that is what humans do. We remember every hand that reached out to us, and we reach back." The crowd erupted. Voices in 100 languages screamed joy and hope and rage. Beings who had never dared to dream of freedom were suddenly told that the dream was real. Stood at the edge of the square, the blue-skinned child still holding his hand. He was crying. He did not know when he had started. Around him the galaxy was changing, slave by slave, world by world, heart by heart. The reckoning had begun. War had come to the galaxy. Not the small wars that had happened before, border conflicts between neighbors, trade disputes that turned violent. This was something different. This was a fire that spread from star to star, burning away the old order and leaving something new in its place. Admiral Song stood in the command center of humanity's war effort. She was 60 years old, with white hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much death. Screens surrounded her, showing battles across 3,000 light years. Red dots marked human forces. Blue dots marked the Dominion. And spreading between them a growing tide of gold, the Rebel Alliance, species that had joined humanity's cause. "Status report," she said. Her aide scrolled through data. 47 species have formally allied with us. Another 30 are providing covert support. The Dominion has lost 18% of their territory in 4 months. Casualties. The aide hesitated. Human losses are significant. We've lost 200 ships and over 50,000 personnel. Closed her eyes for a moment. 50,000. 50,000 sons and daughters who would not come home. 50,000 families who would receive messages telling them that their loved ones had died far from Earth, fighting for people they had never met. And the enemy. Dominion losses are catastrophic. Their military has lost nearly 40% of its strength. Their economy is collapsing as slave worlds break free. They are recalling forces from across their territory. Opened her eyes. The map before her showed the shape of victory, but she knew better than anyone that victory had a price. It always did. Far from the command center, Warlord stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He had commanded this ship for longer than humans had existed as a species. He had conquered worlds, destroyed civilizations, crushed rebellions. He was the greatest military mind the Dominion had ever produced. And he was losing. "How is this possible?" demanded the voice from the communication screen. It was Counselor speaking from the safety of the Dominion. "You have fought for 1,000,000 years. These humans have been in space for 3 centuries. Explain this failure." Turned to face her image. His old eyes were tired, but his voice was steady. "I have studied them," he said. "I have watched their battles. I have analyzed their tactics, and I understand now what we face." "Then tell me." "They are not fighting a war." His voice was heavy. "They are starting a religion." Stared at him. "What nonsense is this? Every species we have conquered, they free. Every slave we have taken, they arm. Every world we have crushed, they raise up." Turned back to his screens, showing the spread of rebellion across Dominion space. "They do not fight for territory. They do not fight for resources. They fight for an idea, and ideas cannot be killed with weapons." "What idea?" Was silent for a long moment. "That the weak deserve protection, that debts must be repaid, that kindness is not weakness." He shook his head slowly. "We are the devils in their story. Every child who grows up free will be taught that humans saved them. Every species that joins them will remember that we enslaved them. We are not just losing a war, we are becoming the villains of history." The communication screen flickered as processed this. "Then we must destroy them completely," she said. "Leave no survivors, burn their worlds to nothing." "With what forces? Half our fleet is fighting rebellions. The other half cannot find human ships until human ships choose to be found. And every world we burn creates 1,000 new enemies." His voice dropped. "We have already lost. The only question now is how much more we will lose before we accept it." On a planet called New Haven, Representative Moon addressed the Alliance Assembly. The room was filled with beings from 47 different species. Some floated in liquid tanks. Some breathed through masks. Some did not breathe at all. But they all watched the human woman at the center of the room. In the front row sat the survivors, all 47 of them, thin and fragile but alive. Elder sat among them, his large eyes never leaving his face. "You wonder why humans fight so hard for others," said. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner. "You wonder why we sacrifice our children for species we have never met. You wonder if we want something from you." She paused. The room was absolutely silent. "I will tell you a story. 70 years ago, my people were dying. An asteroid was coming to destroy our world. We did not have the technology to stop it. We did not have time to escape. 8 billion humans were going to die." She looked at the delegation. "One ship found us. One ship saw our death approaching. The crew of that ship had every reason to say nothing. Their own government forbade contact with primitive species. They would gain nothing from helping us. They would risk everything." Her voice cracked slightly. "But they sent a warning anyway. They saved us. They asked for nothing in return." Spread her hands. "This is why we fight. Because we remember what it means to be weak. We remember what it means to receive help when you deserve nothing. And we swore, every human child learns this oath, that when we were strong enough, we would reach back." She stepped down from the platform and walked to Elder. The old looked up at her with eyes that had seen his entire species nearly erased. "You gave us everything," said. "Now we give it back, not as payment but as continuation. The kindness your people showed will echo forever." Reached out with a trembling hand, took it. "We only sent a message," whispered. "We never dreamed it would lead to this." "That is the thing about kindness," replied. "You never know how far it will travel. You only know that you must send it." The assembly erupted in sound. Voices in 100 languages, all saying the same thing in different ways. They were not alone anymore. Someone had come for them. Someone remembered. Outside the assembly hall, the stars burned with the light of a galaxy at war. Ships fought and died across distances that human minds could barely comprehend. Worlds fell and rose. Empires crumbled. But in that room, For one moment, there was only a human woman holding the hand of an old alien, connected by a debt that had crossed 70 years and 1,000 light years to reach this day. The galaxy burned, and from the ashes something new was being born. The Dominion was called First Light. It had been the capital of their empire for 10 million years. Its cities touched the clouds. Its defenses were the strongest ever built. No enemy had ever reached its surface. Until now. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the assault ship Phoenix, watching the planet grow larger in his. He was older now, his hair streaked with gray, his body carrying scars from a dozen battles. 2 years had passed since he found the survivors. 2 years of war. 2 years of watching friends die. Lieutenant stood beside him as she always had. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched tight. "Planetary shields are still up," she reported. "We can't land until they fall." Nodded. The shields were powered by a station in orbit, massive and heavily defended. Someone had to destroy it. Someone had to get close enough to plant charges inside. "I'll lead the boarding team," said. Grabbed his arm. "That's a suicide mission. The station is surrounded by enemy ships." "I know." "Then let someone else go. You've done enough. You started all of this. You deserve to see the end." Turned to face her. His eyes were tired but certain. "Every soldier out there is someone's child," he said. "Every life matters. I won't ask anyone to do what I'm not willing to do myself." He smiled just slightly. "Besides, I made a promise to. I told him the debt would be repaid. This is my payment." His eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. She had learned long ago that tears did not help anyone. "Then I'm coming with you," she said. "No, you're taking command of the Phoenix. When those shields fall, you land on that planet. You finish this." Wanted to argue. She wanted to grab him and drag him to safety. But she was a soldier and she understood duty. "Yes, Captain," she said. Boarded the assault shuttle with 20 volunteers. They all knew they would not come back. They all went anyway. The approach to the shield station was chaos. Dominion ships fired from every direction. Human ships threw themselves in the way, sacrificing themselves to create a path. Explosions lit the darkness like dying stars. Commander's stealth fleet directly in front of the station, guns blazing. She had promised to buy 5 minutes. She would give him 6, even if it killed her. It did. Her ship took a direct hit to the bridge. In her last moment, she saw a shuttle reach the station. She smiled as the fire took her. Inside the station, and his team fought through corridors filled with Dominion soldiers. They died one by one, buying meters with their blood. When reached the reactor room, only he and 3 others remained. He planted the charges himself. His hands were steady even though his body was broken, shrapnel wounds covering his arms and legs. "Charges set," he reported through his communicator. 60 seconds to detonation. All ships clear the area." His voice came through, cracked with static and grief. "Tell I kept my promise," said. "Tell Earth I did my duty, and thank you for everything." He closed the channel. 57 seconds later, the shield station exploded. The planetary shields fell. Human ships poured through, descending on First Light like rain. Captain Park did not see the victory he had made possible, but his name would be remembered for as long as humans existed. The battle for First Light lasted 3 days. It was the bloodiest fighting of the entire war. Humans died by the thousands, their bodies filling the streets of the Dominion capital. But they did not stop. They could not stop. They had come too far to fail now. On the 3rd day, Warlord walked out of the Imperial Palace with a white flag in his ancient hands. The Dominion surrendered. Admiral Song accepted the surrender in person. She stood in the great hall of the palace, surrounded by the leaders of 47 species. The Dominion Council sat before her, defeated and waiting for judgment. "You expect us to enslave you," said, "to take your worlds, to do to you what you did to others." Counselor looked up. Her eyes were empty. It is what we deserve. It is what we would do. Yes, agreed. It is what you would do, but we are not you. She raised a document, written in 100 languages. These are the terms of peace. Immediate freedom for all enslaved species. War crime tribunals for those who ordered genocides. Reparations paid not to humanity but to the species you destroyed. She paused. And membership in a new galactic federation, as equals, not as conquered subjects. The room was silent, stared at her in disbelief. You are not going to punish us. The tribunals are punishment, the reparations are punishment, but extinction, slavery, conquest, no. His voice was firm. We did not fight this war to become monsters. We fought to prove that kindness is strength. If we abandon that now, we lose everything we died for. She turned to face the assembly. This is the lesson humanity learned 70 years ago. A single act of mercy can save a civilization. They showed us that. Now we show the galaxy. 100 years later, the universe was unrecognizable. Species that had been slaves sat on the Federation Council. Worlds that had been death camps were now universities and gardens. Children of 100 races grew up together, learning about the war in history classes that seemed almost unbelievable. On Earth, in the city of New Seoul, a monument stood in the central plaza. It was called the Monument of Remembrance. On it were carved the names of every human who died in the war. Captain Park's name was near the top. But below the names, a single inscription was carved in every known language. Those who help us in darkness will never face the dark alone. In a quiet room near the monument, the last of the original survivors prepared to die. Elder was over 200 years old now, kept alive by human medicine far past his natural span. Around him sat Young, born from genetic samples preserved by human scientists. His species would survive. His legacy would continue. A human woman sat beside his bed. She was young, barely 20, with dark hair and bright eyes. Her name was Park Sora, great-granddaughter of the captain who had found in that cave so long ago. We came from the same planet, Sora said, holding his thin hand. My family has passed down your story for 4 generations. You are part of us now. Looked at her with eyes that had seen more change than any being should witness. We only sent a message, he whispered. We never dreamed. That's the thing about messages, Sora replied. You never know who is listening. You never know what they will do with your words. Smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in years. Tell them, he said, his voice fatting. Tell everyone, kindness is not weakness, mercy is not foolishness, and debts are always repaid, Sora finished. Closed his eyes for the last time. Outside, the stars turned in their eternal patterns. Somewhere out there, on 1,000 worlds, beings of every shape and size looked up at the same sky. They remembered the war. They remembered the terror. But most of all, they remembered the lesson. Humans never forget a favor. And now, neither did the galaxy. The story had come full circle, a message sent in secret, a debt remembered across generations, a war fought not for conquest but for principle, and at the end, not vengeance but mercy. This was humanity's gift to the universe, not their weapons, not their technology, but their stubborn, foolish, glorious belief that kindness mattered. In every schoolroom on Earth, children still recited the first oath. Those who help us in darkness will never face the dark alone. And in the vast emptiness between stars, where no one could hear, the universe seemed to echo those words back. The debt was paid, but the kindness would continue forever.